is 10 times bigger as far as being a threat. And this is exactly the source of our mistake. Our eyes were always fixed on the north because we know how big of a threat it is. And this is probably why we kind of neglected the south. But make no mistake, Hezbollah has 250,000 rockets aimed at Israel, of which many of them are precision-guided weapons, so they will hit the target. And there's many other hundreds of thousands of zombies on the rest of the borders ready to just run and explode anytime they get orders to do so. So bottom line is, Israel and the Israelis, none of us is going to go back to our life until these two threats are dealt with. And therefore, I would suggest tonight that the war hasn't really started. What we see now is the preparation for a big one, because once Israel enters into Gaza and Hezbollah will start shooting rockets and the Iranian proxies will start attacking from Yemen and from Iraq and from Syria, things will look way different than they are right now. So we're still bracing for a much bigger thing than what we've seen so far.
Yeah, Amir, it is obvious too that the international community understands what you just said a moment ago because of the rhetoric and of what's being said and spoken, what's being printed, the posture of nations. We see what's going on with North Korea and China at a time like this. Russia, the involvement in its relation, it has a arms or a mutual defense agreement with Iran. And so Iran is emboldened because they know that Russia's got its back. And so in light of that, I say we, not you, the United States has sailed into the region and rather abruptly in my opinion, but I have my view on this. But correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if I remember correctly, Israel was actually not encouraging or asking for U.S. involvement into this. Israel did not ask for the Marines. They didn't ask for the SEALs. They didn't ask for these carrier two strike groups to come, did they? Israel didn't ask us to be there. I want everybody to know that.
We did not ask for that. What we did ask is bunker buster bombs, JDAMs, and for more Iron Dome munitions and stuff like that. We did ask for help in that area, but we were actually quite surprised that the White House informed us that actually carriers are on their way. But the talk right now is that America is in the Middle East to actually not guard Israel, but to guard the U.S. soldiers that are here in Iraq and Syria, because again, what they say is that they fear that once we engage into war with the Hezbollah and the rest of the Iranian proxies, America will become the target for those proxies. And so this is why, by the way, we're not yet engaged in a ground maneuver into Gaza, because the U.S. has asked us to hold on with it until all of your missile defense systems will arrive to protect your own troops. So no, we were surprised actually. We didn't ask for it, and it's here, and that's what we have.
Well, you know, and I wanted you to say that, and I wanted to say it for not only this congregation, but for those watching and those that will watch it later, is that Israel is quite ready to take care of this on their own. It's to the advantage of the U.S. administration to protract this out. That's why you're seeing this dribble, not dribble a basketball, but dribble like out of your nose dribble. Delay with Biden speaking to Israel and to possibly Qatar regarding maybe Hamas letting out a few more. Listen, if they take this approach and they let out one more hostage and they wait a few days or weeks and let out another, you don't like to hear this, everybody. but this is not our first rodeo in this part of the world. But it just gives the opportunity of the enemy to rearm. That's what happens. That's what their dream is now, is for a ceasefire. Israel cannot do a ceasefire without paying the price. And they've already paid the price with the loss of over 1,400 people. Not to mention the trauma and all that's going on with those within the nation. What I'm concerned about, Amir, is that the magnitude of our assets in the area. You said that it's there to protect U.S. Military assets, the Eisenhower, and of course the Gerald R. Ford. What concerns me about that is this is an overshow of strength, in my opinion. This is my opinion. I'm not a military strategist. I'm just saying that this was a very quick deployment, a rapid movement to bring in some of the biggest hardware that the United States possesses. Having said that, I'm just asking, how prepared are we after decades of wars that we've failed to win? Iraq, Afghanistan were incredible blunders that we lost. Sorry, people, it's true. And yet we get up and we go with all of our goods. And what concerns me is what has succeeded in recent times is non-conventional warfare tactics, such as terrorists using gliders, right? Or Caterpillar bulldozers to go through fences, right? Or capitalizing or commandeering a commercial airliner to fly it into buildings. This is outside the scope of general operating procedures of a military. Why? Because they don't have rules. But it's interesting to me that the world is saying Israel's got to play by the rules, but Hamas does not have to play by the rules, nor does Hezbollah. And let's be honest, according to our own government, even Iran does not have to play by the rules. Everything that is being pointed at Israel tonight, you paid for. I paid for. Because generously, Barack Obama shipped billions of dollars in aircraft to Iran without congressional knowledge, which is a felony. In fact, it's an act of treason. And yet, yet you didn't hear anything about that. We continue to fund Iran, and we are still, and may we always fund Israel. What are we doing as a country? My concern for Israel is that they are somehow held up. But then I need to remember that God is on his throne. He knows exactly what he's doing. But it is very, very important. Please pray for everyone involved. But I've got grave concerns regarding those that are on the ground, U.S., and grave concerns for those aboard these vessels of the United States Navy. I think they're in great peril. I think they're in great danger because we have a tendency to trust in what we have, but we don't have the will to use what we have. We've got really nice toys, but we don't play them right. And so this is a vulnerable moment. But just know this, everybody. This has not escaped the eye of God. Nothing happens in Israel, let alone the world, without God knowing about this. So, Amir, people are saying things like this. Is this the end of the world? Is this Armageddon? Is this a third world war? What's going on? Amir, what can you say? I know you've been asked this by so many media outlets. What can you say to all of these questions?
Well, it's not the end of the world. We know the story. We know the end of the story. We have the book. We've read it. This is not the end. Israel is not going to be destroyed, and definitely not by these savages. But let me remind everyone that this is the fruit of the policy of this administration. I mean, Iran is flourishing right now thanks to the lifting of the sanctions on the first week of this administration. lifting of sanctions of oil sales. Iran, at the time of the previous administration, went all the way down to 700,000 barrels a day, and now it's over 2 million a day. Iran's economy is recovering, and Iran has billions of dollars that were given to it by this administration, and everything went to continue and fortify its proxies around. This is not a new thing, but during the last administration, Iran suffered greatly, and if only the 45th would have continued, probably we would have seen Iran already gone as far as its current regime. But we also know that God is on the throne and God is in control, and the Word of God predicted that eventually the regime in Iran will not be a lover of Israel, because the Ezekiel war will include Persia in the attacking coalition against Israel. So obviously what happens now is we are on the freeway to the Ezekiel war. But we're not there yet. The thing is, there is a difficult thing for me to see, and this is how the world is expecting us to abide by rules, but those rules are ridiculous. There are more rules for somewhere in Europe, but certainly not in the Middle East. Let me explain that for the first hour of this invasion through our borders, they saw hundreds or many, maybe over 1,000 of civilians that were unarmed, storming through the openings in the border fence into Israel. And they thought we were told not to shoot any unarmed person. Not to mention that this unarmed person is the person who beheaded babies, who raped women, who burned people alive. But again, because they did not have weapons on them, we did not shoot at them. If only the command was anyone that approaches the fence, whether armed or unarmed, shoot in order to kill, things would have been different. But we have a Supreme Court that will not allow us to do that. We have an international community that will not allow us to do that. And therefore, we're now reaping what we sowed. And all of that is to tell you that when an army has its hands tied behind its back, it cannot really fight or give a good fight. I think that what happened to Israel ever since October 7th is that we have changed the hard disk from the Europe or American mode to the Middle Eastern mode. And this is exactly why they're now afraid.
Yeah, so well said. It's amazing because it sounded like you're describing the United States. We've got a government, or we've got leaders. You can't do this, you can't do that. We've got criminals now killing people, laughing on their way to the courthouse, knowing that they're going to be getting out. All of that. It's almost like it's the same kind of spirit that is just permeating the world. But you know what's amazing right now, Amir, and we'll be careful with what we say on this, that where your nation has been the glory of the world when it comes to security. The Israelis felt so secure with your walls and with your electronic fences and with all of your surveillance capabilities, and then to have this happen, where now, Amir, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but this is Wednesday. And so for the last 5 days, the U.S. media has been saying things like this. Feds warn Hezbollah and Hamas may have crossed, past tense, may have crossed into border states here in the United States. And what's shocking is, wait, feds are warning us about this? When every normal thinking person has been watching this happen for the last several years. And not to mention the fact that there are flyers and stuff found in the California and Arizona and Texas desert written in Arabic, giving them instructions to go into certain places. So what's amazing, we've got the Iranian regime believing that it's upon them to exercise their devotion to Islam, that they need to destroy the big Satan and the little Satan. That's why we hear around the world, remarkably, in Argentina, death to America, death to Israel. It's amazing. In foreign countries, in South America, death to America, death to Israel. Where does that come from? That comes from an Islamic doctrine of protest and of belief. But the amazing thing is that, Amir, help us understand this. We're watching university campuses where people are running around waving Palestinian flags, saying that they are for the Palestinian. I get it. I get that. But in the same breath, they're condemning Israel and leaving Hamas out of the equation completely. They're condemning Israel for what Israel is doing to poor Palestinians without mentioning the word Hamas. So, Amir, can you speak to us from the Middle East right now, live, where you're at? Help the Western world understand what is this, what's happening, the Palestine issue, the Hamas issue, and we're just talking about the South right now.
Yeah. First of all, let me make it very clear. America is not less under attack than Israel. It's just that you haven't felt it yet. We have. But America has been infiltrated by thousands of these terrorists, and they don't have in mind any territorial dispute. It's not about territory.
Right.
We found a little note in one of the terrorists' pockets, and we unveiled it today in front of the media. And it says there that Allah is calling them to get rid of the enemy because the enemy is a disease without cure, and it can only be dealt by beheading and the extraction of the hearts and the liver from them. That's the thinking. The thinking is, you're the problem. I mean, we're the problem. In your case, you're the problem. By the way, death to America and death to Israel is chanted in your own universities. They will not say death to America, but they will say maybe death to Israel, but they will come against America as much as they come against Israel, because someone indoctrinated them in those universities that we are the colonialists, we are the powers that everybody must fight against. But none of them, they are as stupid as my shoe, because they don't even know history, they don't study history, they don't have a clue that the name Palestine has absolutely nothing to do with Arabs. In fact, if you ask a Palestinian, where is Palestine come from, 99.9% of them will not even know where it comes from. It's funny that the very name that they are so proudly using is actually related to the Jewish history in the land and has nothing to do with Arabs. And so they don't know. The ignorance is the best way of the enemy to use them as pawns, and I call it the deception of the nations. And the enemy, this is what he does. Satan is deceiving the nations all the time, and Israel is one of the main things that deception is about. So let me make it very clear. Hamas is an Islamic resistance movement that has nothing to do with land. It has to do with religious fight. They are the local branch of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yes.
Global movement that you can find them in Turkey, you can find them in Egypt, and you can find them all around the Middle East and everywhere in the Middle East, except of Turkey, because the leader of Turkey is the leader of them. But everywhere else, the Islamic Brotherhood is actually outlawed because they are very, very dangerous people. And so we're talking about a terrorist organization. By the way, in 2014, Benjamin Netanyahu, from the stage of the United Nations, the United Nations main stage there, he said Hamas is ISIS. And Obama's White House, the same day, issued an announcement saying Hamas is not ISIS. It's funny because now everybody see what Hamas is. It's worse than ISIS. I don't want to repeat what they did to us on the 7th of October, but we thought that we've seen it all with footage and documentaries and testimonials from Auschwitz. Auschwitz pales compares to what happened on October 7th. Yeah. A genocide took place on October 7th. And therefore, we have, under the Geneva Convention, under international law, we have the duty, not just the right, the duty to eradicate them. Now, we must understand that there has never been a Palestinian state in the history of planet Earth.
Wait, say that again.
Of Arabs
Amir, say it again slowly. People need to know this. So, nice and slow.
Never in the history of planet Earth there was a nation of Palestinians and a country of the Palestinians. Never. Never. These Arabs are a collection of Arabs from different countries all around that predominantly, most of them moved into Israel, which was called Palestine, regardless of them. I mean, the name Palestine started in 135 AD by Adrian the Caesar, who wanted to mock the Jews for rebelling against him, and named the land after the Philistines, their Old Testament foes. It has nothing to do with Arabs. And the funny thing is, the Philistines got their name from the word invader. So anyone who claimed to be a Palestinian, by default, actually it confesses to be an invader. But the funny thing is that most of the Arabs came as a result of the return of the Jews to the land.
That's right.
And go back to the 1984 book that was written by Joan Peters, and it's called From Time Immemorial. She's a she passed away not long ago, CBS producer of documentaries. She was sent by the Carter administration to write a book about the rights of the Palestinians over the land. Jimmy Carter was a great advocate of the Palestinians. And it's interesting because when she started digging into all the archives of the Ottoman Empire, the UN, and the British Mandate, she was shocked to find out that most of the land was underpopulated in the mid-1800s. Most of those Arabs came as a result of the Jewish return, when the Jews brought in a lot of wealth and industry and agriculture, and those Arabs saw good future, and they moved in. So everyone that says we were there first, it was our land first, that's nonsense. It's nonsense because it's not even based on facts. And again, when we talk about give them back, there is no give them back. They never had it to begin with. The land was occupied ever since the Jews were expelled. The land was occupied by foreigners, by the Romans and the Byzantines, and then the early Muslims, and then came the Crusaders and the late Muslims, and then of course the Ottoman Empire for 500 years, and eventually the British Mandate that started in the early 1920s. And the mandate that was given to Britain was that that Palestine would be a place where the Balfour Declaration be fulfilled. And the Balfour Declaration was the promise of the British Empire for a Jewish homeland. And it's interesting because at the moment when the mandate was given, Palestine was actually Jordan and Israel of today. Mm-hmm. So people don't know that. And it's interesting because none of them comes to the Jordanian and says, hey, that's Palestine as well. It's funny because Jordan controlled the West Bank until 1967, and no one asked them for a state for the Palestinians. Egypt controlled Gaza until 1967, and no one asked them for a Palestinian state. In fact, when we fought against Egypt and then signed peace with them in 1979, the Egyptians said, give us Sinai back, but please keep Gaza to yourself.
Yeah.
We do not want that one
Isn't
back.
that something?
Listen, that's what we have right now. People don't know that history. And we have to admit that lies and deceptions are all over, all around. And we have to fight it, and fighting it by knowledge and by education. And the Bible is, I think, the best source of education, because if you go to the book of Nehemiah, to chapter 2, you see that one of those who mocked Nehemiah for returning back to Jerusalem was Geshem the Arab. And Nehemiah himself said, you will never understand why I'm back in the land and why I'm back in Jerusalem, because you have no heritage, you have no memorial, you have nothing in Jerusalem. You don't know Jerusalem. It means nothing to you, because that's not yours. Yeah. So you will never understand why I have to go all the way back here and rebuild the city and rebuild the walls and rebuild the temple. So even the Bible tells us that the Arabs had no heritage and no memorial and nothing regarding Jerusalem or the rest of the country. But again, the world always prefers to believe the lie. And we see that even today. Look, even today, 1,400 people were massacred, and people around the world still believe the lie that it never happened. I mean, I have a recording of a phone call of one of those murderers who called his mom from from a woman's cell phone, a woman he just killed, her and her husband. And he was proudly saying, "Mom, I just killed 10 Jews. I still have their blood on my hands. In fact, I'm calling you from the phone of that woman. I just killed her and her husband. You should be proud of your son." They were proud. They filmed everything they did with the GoPro cameras, body cameras. Everything we know about what happened is from their cameras. They were doing live broadcasts on Facebook and WhatsApp and TikTok. They were so happy. They were so proud. They just never thought that there is a tomorrow which they will pay for. And now payday is coming. And trust me, no one in Gaza Strip is that innocent. Let me tell you something. They voted Hamas in. Let me tell you that they cheer for Hamas's rockets flying to Israel every day. And I will tell you, even now, they're still completely behind Hamas. And at least half of the people that were murdered by civilians that infiltrated through the open border, not by the Hamas terrorists with guns. So we have to understand, I would not call them innocent civilians over there. And as far as I'm concerned, look, the Bible tells us, people ask me, why are you so, militaristic or so militant when it comes to, you're a believer, you should love your enemy. Look, Romans 13 tells us that the government has the duty to use its sword against the evildoers. Yeah. And I'm not going and killing Palestinians. I'm not going and using anything. But I expect my government, according to even the New Testament, to use its sword to execute judgment upon the evildoers.
Yeah, there's no doubt about the fact there's ultimate judgment coming at the hand of God and his righteousness. And then there is what I would just consider as what Amir is speaking of, the precursor to God's judgment, and that is temporary judgments. God issues temporary judgments through authorities. That's part of God's government revealed in Scripture, both Old and New Testament. Amir mentioned two words. He mentioned the word deception, and he mentioned the word lies. And I want all of you guys to see this. Guys, we're going to go to slide number 4. I want you to see a lie that your university student believes. And I want to unpack this for you quickly and then give Amir the opportunity to speak to this. Now, this is how the world, listen carefully, this is how the world views this current issue today. Notice the top, Palestinian loss of land, 1947 to present. That's what your kids are learning in school. That's what the UN sees. This is what many in the United States government sees. This is what many in the West see in other parts of the world. This is how they recognize it. You have friends, neighbors, family, co-workers. This is their view. On the left side, this is their view. Now watch this. On the left side, Amir said it, I hope you caught it. None of that was, quote, green until 135 AD by the Emperor Hadrian, Roman Emperor. Stop right there. From the creation of time itself, all the way through, God had called this land the Promised Land. That it would be a land that would be eventually Abraham's land, but eventually, the scripture says, it would be Israel. And there's a very, very direct, I'll show it to you in a moment, a very key layout of the land of promise. Okay? But from 135 AD, when Hadrian, the pagan Roman, said, I want to shame the Israelis, I want to destroy Jerusalem, so let's do this. Let's no longer call Jerusalem, Jerusalem, but Capitolina, and let's no longer call Israel, Israel, let's call it Palestine, or root is Philistia, the land of the Philistines, the land of the invaders, which is today spoken, you can say, Palestine. But it comes out of Rome, friends. But from the unbelieving world view, to them, Israel has done nothing but eat up land. You see, the occupier, to them, has been advancing. That the occupier tonight is the one retaliating against those who attacked Israel. Are you tracking me? Because they view what Israel's doing as a great injustice. Why? They don't believe Israel should have been in the first place. Listen, if you don't believe in the God of the Bible, then you would agree with them. This comes down not to geopolitical issues. This comes down to spiritual issues. Did God promise Abraham the land? You only know that from the Bible. You also only know this from the Bible. There's no word Palestine in the Bible. From Genesis to Revelation, it's not there. But Israel is in there nearly 700 times. Okay, are you listening? You can go back as far back as time can go, and you'll find the name Israel in the scriptures. Amir mentioned Nehemiah. That's about 2,500 years ago, okay? What was Nehemiah talking about? What did King Artaxerxes say to Nehemiah for him to go back and rebuild? Go back to Jerusalem, go back to Israel. Friends, the pagan ancient world called Jerusalem, Jerusalem, and they called Israel, Israel. No one ever called it Palestine. It was Hadrian who said, those Jews make me sick. I want to erase their memory of their land and of their heritage, so let's rename it. Let's punish them by renaming them. That name has stuck to people who do not believe in the God of the Bible. I hope this is making some sense. So what you see now to the far right is Israel present, and look how they put it. The white area now is Israeli occupied land. And you look at that, and you're a student at Harvard, and you're going, oh man, I see the injustice now. Lies and doctrines of demons. Why? Because if Israel doesn't exist, then where's Christ returning to? If there's no Jerusalem, then where is Christ going to establish his throne? Are you getting my drift? These are spiritual issues. And then real quick, I want to show you, put up number 2,
Jack,
guys. Yeah.
Can I show you this slide that you just showed? Look, this is the real deal. You see, look at the screen right now. Okay, that's the fake and that's the real. The real is that there was a British mandate. Yeah. We offered them, there was an offer for them, they said no. Then 1967, then you see the rest. There was never a point where there was a Palestinian state, never a point where they owned the land, never a point where we took it from them. If anything, we offered them a state and they said no thank you. They said we don't want to live next to you, we want to live instead of you. That's the thing that we have right now. And so in fact, what we have now, they have more than they need to. Well, that's, again, the fake is fake and the real is real. It's always, you always teach history from where it's convenient to you. And for them, it's convenient only from 1948. They don't want to talk about what happened before. They don't want to talk about the fact that actually they never had anything. And just a short reminder, we often now, since October 7th, call them Nazi Hamas. The leader of the Palestinians met with Adolf Hitler and had a pact with Hitler that once they destroy the Jewish people, the Palestinians will get the land, and Hitler promised them that it will happen. So they collaborated with Hitler then, and they are now mimicking the Nazi actions even today.
Yep, absolutely. You guys, real quick, slide number 2. Slide number 2. This is the land. When God spoke to Abraham and told Abraham the parameters of the land, this is what it's going to be when Jesus comes back. Take a picture of that. When Christ returns and sits upon his throne, the kingdom will be established and the promised land of Israel will be fulfilled. It was really, it was its largest under Solomon, but it was never fully realized. Friends, listen, the God of the Bible is either true or false. He's either honest or he's not. When he says, this is the parameters, this is the land that is promised, those parameters will be accomplished when Christ Jesus returns. You can bet your eternal life on that. And so just remember that. The next slide is number 3, which shows it in just more modern type colors. Take a look at that. Israel's not going to go away. Now, granted, Israel does have a tribulation period that's coming that is going to be horrific, and the Jews will suffer during the tribulation period like they've never suffered before. That's hard to believe, but that's what the Bible says. But when Christ returns, this is going to be God's kingdom. Christ sits on the throne in the millennial age, the 1,000-year reign of Christ. It very much resembles slide number 1. If you look at the tribes of Israel from the book of Joshua, chapters 13 to 19, you can kind of see, a little bit more, even though you see Simeon goes way down into the south. I just want you to visually see that. But just know this, that what you're seeing on the news today, people are screaming and yelling and tipping and burning cars and beating people up and who knows what right now, maybe even worse things, because of the Palestinian issue, they're saying. Wait, is it the Palestinian issue you're concerned about? Or is it that Hamas is getting their teeth kicked in? What's causing you to become violent? Why are you doing this in Philadelphia? I don't know if you saw the riots in Philadelphia the other day. It was a pro-Palestinian riot, and so a group of LGBTQ went out there with them, with their flag, not knowing that Muslims kill homosexuals. They didn't stop to do some homework. And they got the snot beat out of them and they ran for their lives. You need to understand that the debate, people will talk about the land. It's not about, I said this a few weeks ago, it's not exactly about Hamas. It's not exactly about Palestinian. It's not exactly about, listen, I said it. It's about the belief in one of two gods that you hold to. That's what it's come down to. And the battlefield is the land of Israel. But I just want to leave this with you. For some of you who may be watching and you're struggling with this information, just pick up a Bible. Because the Bible predates Islam. The Bible predates Muhammad. The Bible predates the Philistines. The Bible is your chief history book. Pick it up. Hey, Amir, will you comment on this for a moment? I just got this. Erdogan in Turkey says that Hamas is not a terrorist group,